So this video is for the topic being human. All right. So the first question you could be asked for this is to describe or explain what it means to be human. All right. So the first sort of idea that there's so many different ideas you can use for this. All right. But the first one to focus on is the fact of looking at our responsibilities. All right. So the first one is a responsibility to do God's work, and the reason for that is because we've been all made in the image and likeness of God. All right, so imago Dei. Now, the next one is that we have a responsibility to rule over the world, and this is because God gave us dominion over the world, but at the same time, we also have the responsibility to care for the world as stewards of the world. Okay, and the quotations to use to back that up is, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, okay, or all made in the image and likeness of God. Let them have dominion over all the earth, okay. Another sort of responsibility, or what it means to be human, is that we should love and respect ourselves and others, okay. And the reason for that is that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, and that we've also been taught that we should love thy neighbour. Now, as I sort of said there, the fact that we've been given dominion over the world, the chance to rule over the world, and the fact that we're like God, also gives us the idea that that we are fortunate to be human and our lives are valuable. Now, this is because all life is sacred, we can find the Catechism, okay, and that St. Paul teaches that life is a gift from God. Being human also means the fact that we are special, if you want, and unique, and all made with specific gifts to carry out God's work. So, for example, the parable of the talents teaches exactly this message. All right, the fact that we've all got different gifts and talents, and that we should use them, and we'll be rewarded for doing so. The other one is that all humans have free will, or are autonomous. And with that, right, so even though we have free will, we've got to remember that free will is there, and that we've also got a responsibility to use that free will, to make sure that we do God's work. And the reason for that is, like I said, humans have free will, but we're made up of two equal parts, body and soul. And the fact that God breathed our soul into us means that should be a compulsion and a responsibility to use our free will to do God's work and to do good. The final one to include is the idea that human beings are both sexual and social beings. It's something that sort of distinguishes us from animals. Whilst we have a responsibility to go forth and multiply and sort of to procreate, we don't do that without establishing a relationship with the person beforehand, all right, and as Catholics say, within marriage. Okay, so it's the idea that we are sexual beings, but also that humans are social beings at the same time. Now, a common question that sort of comes up with this is the evaluation question on how all humans reflect the nature of God. Now, if you ask this question, we've got to think about what God is like, and the idea of it is to do with the omnis, all right, so all powerful, all knowing, all loving, all present, okay, and if you keep those in mind, all right, but then also the fact that we made in the image and likeness of God to carry out his work, to do what he wants, to do what he would do if he was on earth, right? So if we keep those ideas in mind, then it'll help us to be able to answer this question. So the idea of being loving, okay, so that's obviously a concept that God wants from us. God is loving, okay, so that human beings can reflect that nature, and the way in which they can do that, all right, is that we can follow the two greatest commandments of love thy God and love thy neighbour. Okay, so yeah, we can reflect the nature of God, and humans do reflect the nature of God when they show love to others, but also when they show love to God at the same time. Okay, now the second idea here is remembering the idea that God is depicted as a creator of life, and as a father. Okay, now these ideas come from Genesis, but also they come from the creed. Okay, so in the creed it says that we believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. Okay, now we can do this in our lives. We can replicate the idea of being creative, and also in a paternal role by being a parent. Okay, so we can do that by having children and raising children. All right, so it's another way in which we can reflect reflect God in our lives. However, when it comes to reflecting God's nature, I think the two things to really focus on here is the fact that some people misuse their free will and do bad, okay? And the other one is the idea that God is perfect and we can't be that, all right? So if we focus on the idea of God being perfect, first of all, that this one, obviously, we're talking about omnipotent, omnibenevolent, that sort of idea, that, well, we can't be that. I mean, God is described by Jesus as God is love. Well, as human beings, that sometimes we can be selfish and unforgiving, or that we are flawed. And as a result of that, there are times when we don't reflect the nature of God. So that's one way that goes against it. We can never be perfect. Only God is. The second idea is the fact that some people, like I said, turn away from God or do things that could be considered as evil. So, for example, murderers, rapists, they don't reflect the nature of God in any way. And in fact, you could actually say the opposite of God. So therefore, these people on this side of the argument would say that only some people reflect the nature of God. So maybe you have to choose to be like him, okay? So it would be unfair to say that all of humanity reflects the nature of God. Now, linked to this topic is also the fact that human beings have souls, okay? So if we were asked to describe Catholic views on the soul, all right, that first of all, you should say about the fact that it's the spiritual aspect of us and it's what connects us to God, okay? So in Genesis, it teaches how God breathed life into Adam, and by Adam, it's meaning that, obviously, the metaphor that he breathed life into humanity. So our soul comes from God, it connects us with him. It's our spiritual aspect. The other part, the second thing to remember is what the Catechism teaches about the fact that human beings are made up of two equal parts, body and soul. Okay, so that is what makes a full human being. So without a soul, we do not exist. The third thing that Catholics believe about the soul is the fact that it is immortal, all right, and at the end of our lives that we will be judged, okay, and our soul will go to one of three places: heaven, hell, or purgatory, okay? So when it then comes to that idea of judgment, and because you need to bring this into your answer as well, that Catholics believe that our souls will be judged immediately when we die, and this is called individual judgment or particular judgment. So this happens when we die, okay, and we will go to heaven, hell, or purgatory based on how we have led our lives. Then at the end of time, as Jesus teaches in the parable of the sheep and the goats, that he will return, as well as in the ascension, that he will return, okay, and when he does, there will be final judgment, and that is when it is decided whether we will go to heaven or whether we will go to hell for the rest of our lives. Now, linked with the idea of soul is, and a common question that comes up, whether it be opinion or evaluate, is whether the soul exists. So imagine it was a question said, there is no evidence of the existence of the soul. Do you agree? Give reasons why someone would disagree with you, right? So you need to know about whether the soul exists or not. Okay, so looking at why it does exist, and you use the similar ideas that I've just given about Catholic views on it. So yeah, a soul does exist, all right, and it's our spiritual aspect, right? So there isn't going to be any physical evidence of it because it's our, like I said, it's our spiritual aspect, and the reason that we believe this is back to that quotation of how God breathed life into us. So it is not, when it's an abstract idea. It's not something that, here is our body and here is our soul. It's not something that can be viewed, all right? So therefore, Catholics would say we should not expect to see any physical evidence of the soul, but instead that it can be experienced, okay, almost. The fact that our soul is a way in which God works through us. Okay, so instead of seeing physical evidence for it, you would see it maybe through someone's actions instead. Another reason for it is that, and you can draw on the idea of what Catholics say about the fact that a soul does exist, because without the existence of our soul, then human beings wouldn't exist. And the reason for that is that Catechism teaches that human beings are made up of two equal parts, body and soul. So they're dependent on one another. If you didn't have one, then a human being wouldn't exist. Okay, so therefore Catholics would say that if it wasn't for our soul, then as I said, human beings wouldn't exist. Now, obviously, there's two sides to this argument, and when it comes to, as you probably know, when it comes to why the soul doesn't exist, that one of the biggest sort of arguments for that is the fact that there is no physical evidence for it. All right, so the example you could use to back this up is the fact that we've had, exploratory surgeries and a variety of different surgeries, and there's been no evidence found whatsoever of the existence of the soul. So therefore, these people would argue that it's difficult to believe in. It's difficult to believe in an idea that is so abstract, so maybe it doesn't exist. The other thing is the fact that if our soul is what connects us with God, then why do people do the wrong thing? Why do people misuse our free will if we have got this thing within us that connects us with God? Why doesn't it compel all people to do good all of the time? It's a part of God in a way that dwells within us. The fact that God breathed life into us. That, and if that is the case, why do people misuse their free will? Why does moral evil exist? And that leads to some people saying that, you know what, if that's the case, then maybe a soul doesn't exist. And that concludes the video on being human and the second part of soul.